Hey, 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 beautiful beings of light. Welcome back to another episode of Just Chilling with Tease Angel. Come on in, get comfy, grab your drink, kick off your shoes, and settle into this beautifully weird, wildly heartfelt, sometimes chaotic, but always real little corner of the world we've created together. If you've been here for a while, then you already know this podcast is not about perfection. This is not polished. This is not scripted to death. This is real conversations, story time, rabbit holes, soul talks, hard truths, healing moments, a little laughter, and a whole lot of unfiltered me, Tease Angel, showing up exactly as I am. And I'm so incredibly grateful that you keep showing up too, because this tribe we're building feels very special. And if you're brand new here, yay, freaking yay. Welcome, 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 beautiful soul. You've officially just found your people. And every single new listener means this tribe keeps growing, these conversations keep growing, and I get to keep doing one of my favorite things in the whole wide world, lighting up beautiful souls and reminding people that they are never walking this journey alone. I'm your host, Tease Angel, author, artist, empath, and a very well intentioned light being, just trying to spread some love while figuring out this weird, beautiful roller coaster called life right alongside with you. Because let's be real for a second. We're already riding this thing called life, so why not lean in a little? Why not laugh harder, love deeper, be a little weirder, a little magical, and lead with our biggest, brightest hearts? Because around here, we talk about everything, everything and anything that pops into my pretty little head. The spiritual stuff, the messy stuff, the healing stuff, the uncomfortable stuff, the okay, wait, hear me out kind of stuff. And somehow it always turns into a light message. Well, maybe a light message, but a life lesson or message from the universe. Now, before we dive in, let's get some housekeeping items out of the way as usual. If you ever want to reach out, share your thoughts, your experiences, feedback, a story, or simply say, hey girl, hey, send me an email at teaseangel@gmail.com and put just chilling in the subject line. And if you're wanting a reading, put free tarot card reading in the subject line. Or honestly, just text me, call me, walk up to me in person and go, can I get a reading? Because as you know, a lot of you know me personally, and you already know I don't mind. You can also find me on Instagram at teaseangels_books, Facebook at Tease Angels Books, and my author's website, www.teaseangelsbooks.com. And Tease Angel, as a reminder, is spelt Tzangel, because I'm Tease Angel. Okay, this is going to be another one of those longer episodes focusing on yet another topic near and dear to my heart. All the Claires, and it's not the name Claire. And if you're sitting there going, what the hell is a Claire? Well, I'm going to tell you. The word clair actually comes from the French and it means clear. And the clairs are basically the different ways your intuition, your highest self, your spirit, source, the universe, God, goddess, whatever resonates with you, communicates with you. Think of them as the language of your soul. So when you hear things like clairvoyance, that means clear seeing. Clairaudience is clear hearing. Clairsentience is clear feeling. Claircognizance is clear knowing. And my loves, once you start learning them, you may suddenly realize, wait, I've been doing this my entire life. But first, grab your drink for a cheers. Coffee, tea, wine, water, tequila, whatever liquid you want to wet your whistle with. Because, like I always say, it doesn't matter whether you drink or not. It's the symbolism of the toasting that counts. All right, my loves, I'm drinking Cabernet. Raise it up. Today's cheers is for opening your minds up to all the unlimited possibilities that exist on this earthly plane, to being curious, and to actually wanting to dive deep down into rabbit holes. Here's to trusting ourselves a little more, to paying attention to the whispers, to learning how the universe talks to us, and to realizing we may have been intuitive our entire lives without even knowing it. And yes, you have been. Cheers, tribe. Now, before we dive in to each one of the clairs, let's talk about something really, 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 really important. I personally do not believe intuition is reserved for a chosen few. I don't believe there are special people and non-special people. I think some people are naturally stronger in certain intuitive channels, but I genuinely believe every single human being has intuition. Every single one of us. Even researchers who study intuition often describe it as information being processed outside conscious awareness. Your brain notices things before you consciously do. Your body notices things before you consciously do. Your nervous system notices things before you consciously do. And this conversation isn't a brand new conversation. There are actually a lot of teachers, researchers, authors, mediums, and spiritual communities that have been talking about intuition and human consciousness for decades. One of the people many of you have heard me mention before is Elizabeth April. And one of the things she talks about often is the idea that humanity isn't necessarily learning something completely new. We're remembering things we've always had access to. Remembering. She teaches that intuitive abilities are part of our natural state, and that as people become more self-aware, spiritually curious, and connected to themselves, they often start noticing abilities that were already there. Things like heightened intuition, vivid dreams, synchronicities, strong gut feelings, energy sensitivity, and those moments where you somehow know something before there's any logical reason to know it. And then you have people like Sterling Psychic Medium, another one of my faves, who often talks about discovering your strongest intuitive language. In other words, figuring out how information naturally arrives for you. He has a video on his YouTube page called Talking to Heaven, where he basically shows you how to tune in to sharpen your clairs. And if you do the exercises he describes, you'll be closer to being able to use your clairs more easily. I've done it. It works. Because here's the thing. Not everybody receives intuitive information the same way. Some people see images. Some people hear words. Some people feel emotions. And some people just know things. And Sterling often explains that many people spend years comparing themselves to others because they think intuition should look a certain way. But if your strongest clair is clear knowing, you're probably not going to receive a giant movie screen vision. If your strongest clair is clear feeling, you're probably not going to hear booming voices from the heavens. Your intuition is going to speak your language. And honestly, that resonates with me. Because once I learned about the clairs, my whole life suddenly started making more sense. I started realizing that some of the things I thought were just weird little quirks might actually be how I naturally receive information. And if this topic interests you and you want to go down your own rabbit hole after this episode, there are some fascinating people and resources you can explore. You can look into Elizabeth April and her teachings on consciousness, intuition, dreams, and multidimensional awareness. Sterling, the psychic medium, in his work on psychic development, mediumship, and identifying your strongest clair. Sylvia Browne's books, especially her discussions on intuition, dreams, guides, and spiritual abilities. Sonia Choquette, it's spelled Choquette, who has written extensively about intuition and trusting your inner guidance. There's Caroline Myss, or Miss, MYSS, who explores intuition, energy, archetypes, and emotional healing. Dr. Judith Orloff, she's a good one, who combines psychology and empath research, especially around highly sensitive and empathic individuals. There's research on highly sensitive people, HSPs, by Dr. Elaine Aron, which many empaths strongly resonate with. I've looked at some of her research and I resonate with her and all the other people that I've mentioned. There's Carl Jung's work on dreams, symbols, synchronicity, and the unconscious mind. There's near-death experience research from organizations like International Association for Near-Death Studies, where many people describe experiences involving intuition, heightened awareness, and consciousness beyond ordinary perception. And then there's studies on intuition, subconscious pattern recognition, and decision making from psychology and neuroscience, which offer a more scientific perspective on why we sometimes just know. And here's the part I find kind of amazing. You don't have to agree with all of it. You don't have to believe all of it. And you don't even have to pick a side. Because whether you approach this from spirituality, psychology, neuroscience, consciousness studies, or simply personal experience, people all over the world continue to report the same kinds of experiences. The names change, the explanations change, the beliefs change, but the experiences, the dreams, the knowing, the feelings, the synchronicities, the nudges, those stories keep showing up. And that alone is worth paying attention to. Let's get into the different clairs, starting with the one most people have heard of, and that is clairvoyance, clear seeing. Now, before everybody starts imagining crystal balls and dramatic movie psychics, like those early 2000 movies where somebody suddenly has visions and spends the entire movie running around trying to stop a disaster, think The Sixth Sense. Okay, technically that was 1999, but still one of the most famous examples of seeing things other people can't. And then one of my favorites series of movies is Final Destination in 2000, where Alex has that vivid premonition of the plane crash before it happens. Another favorite of mine, Premonition, with Sandra Bullock, where she's experiencing information before events unfold, or Knowing with Nicolas Cage, filled with visions, symbols, and information arriving before disasters happen. And then there's The Gift with Cate Blanchett, probably one of the closest Hollywood portrayals of a clairvoyant psychic receiving visions and impressions. Or maybe if you're younger, you grew up with Raven from That's So Raven. That might be one of the funniest mainstream examples of clairvoyance ever put on television. But real life clairvoyance usually isn't nearly that dramatic. Most people aren't seeing movie trailers for the future. Most clairvoyance is subtle. It's a symbolic thing and can look like vivid dreams, symbols, flashes of images, seeing things in meditation, visual downloads, imagining something and later realizing it was meaningful. A lot of people first experience clairvoyance through dreams. Dreams are one of the biggest places for intuition to get our attention because the logical mind finally shuts up for 5 minutes. Anybody else experience any of this? If you want to practice and start sharpening your clairvoyance, I suggest keeping a dream journal and asking before bed, show me what I need to know. Don't force it, just notice it. Then there's clairaudience. That's clear hearing. And again, before anybody panics, this is usually not hearing voices out loud. For most people, it looks like hearing songs that answer questions. Remember one of my first episodes? Phrases popping into your mind, guidance arriving as thoughts, hearing your name, knowing exactly what someone needs to hear. The biggest clue? The message usually feels calm, simple, clear, and not fear-based, because fear tends to yell, and intuition usually whispers, like the universe. The next clear is clairsentience. That is clear feeling. And this is for all of our empaths out there. This one is me. And just as I described in my episode on being an empath, clairsentience means clear feeling, feeling energy, feeling emotions, feeling atmospheres, feeling rooms, feeling people, feeling things before they happen. This is often where empaths live. And if you're sitting there thinking, I walk into a room and instantly know something is off, yeah, that. And this might be your strongest clair as well. Many empaths spend years thinking something is wrong with them, like I did, when really they're just picking up information differently. I think this is one of my strongest gifts. I feel people, I feel situations, I feel energy shifts. I feel when something changes, and sometimes I know something is happening before I know why I know it. And that's where our next clear comes in. Clear cognizance, clear knowing. And my loves, this one, this is also me all day long, to the point where I've had people ask me, now, how in the hell do you know that? This is the I don't know how I know, I just know clear. No vision, no voice, no proof, no logic, just knowing. This is where so many of my downloads come from. It's the feeling that something lands fully formed. It's how I wrote my books. No steps, no explanation, just yep. And later, like, life catches up and you realize you were right. Okay, now let's get into some of the less talked about clairs. And honestly, these are the ones that tend to make people stop and go, wait, what? Clairalience means clear smelling. Have you ever randomly smelled someone's perfume and nobody was there? Or cigarette smoke, flowers, a specific food, a scent that instantly reminded you of someone who passed, and you look around like, okay, who's making cookies? And nobody is. Now, before anybody starts blaming every smell on spirit, rule number one, always look for the logical explanation first. But many people in intuitive communities describe receiving information through scent. Sometimes a scent reminds them of a loved one. Sometimes it feels symbolic. Sometimes it appears completely out of nowhere. And if you've experienced that, you're not alone. Then there's clairgustance. This one is even less common. Clairgustance is clear tasting. This is when someone suddenly experiences a taste that isn't physically present. A food, a flavor, a taste connected to a memory, a taste associated with a person. And I'll be honest, this is not my strongest one. I've never felt this one at all. But many intuitive practitioners talk about receiving information through taste impressions. Again, not something to force, just something to notice. And then we have clairtouch, sometimes called psychometry. This is receiving information through touch, like objects, jewelry, photographs, personal belongings, places. Many people describe touching something and suddenly getting a feeling, an impression, an image, or information. And whether you view that spiritually, energetically, or psychologically, it's fascinating because our lives leave imprints. Our experiences leave imprints, and sometimes those impressions seem to be felt. Okay, here's the part I really want everybody to hear. Most people do not have just one clair. Most people have a combination. One may be stronger, one may come first, one may be your native language, but most people use several. And I think that's why so many people don't realize they're intuitive, because they're waiting for some giant moving moment. Meanwhile, their intuition has been talking to them for years through feelings, through knowing, through dreams, through signs, through nudges, through synchronicities, through that little voice that says, don't do that. And then you do it anyway. And later you're like, well, I should have listened to my intuition. And here's the really beautiful part. Just like going to the gym strengthens the muscle, many people believe you can strengthen your intuitive abilities through practice, awareness, and trust. Not by forcing them, not by obsessing over them, but by paying attention, like I always say. Because intuition tends to get louder when we start listening. So let's talk about some of the ways you can start working with each clair if you're curious about developing your own intuitive language. If your strongest clair is clairvoyance, you may naturally receive information through images, symbols, dreams, flashes, colors, or your imagination. And yes, I said imagination because one of the biggest mistakes people make is dismissing everything they imagine. Sometimes intuition arrives through the same doorway. There are ways to strengthen clairvoyance. You can keep a dream journal beside your bed. Before you go to sleep, you want to say, what do I need to know? You can practice visualization exercises. During meditation, imagine a rose, an apple, a candle, or a doorway and see how much detail you can hold. You could pay attention to symbols that repeat in your life, like the numbers, seeing 111 or 222 or 333. Stop dismissing everything. This is the biggest key. Start noticing mental images that arrive unexpectedly. Stop dismissing everything as just your imagination. Sometimes that's exactly where the message arrives. If you're clairaudient, clear hearing, information may arrive as words, phrases, songs, thoughts, names, or internal messages. You may hear a song lyric at the exact moment you need it. You may suddenly know exactly what somebody needs to hear. You may hear a phrase repeating in your mind. There are ways to strengthen your clairaudience. You could go to Sterling, the Psychic Medium's YouTube channel and practice the talking to heaven that he put on there. Spend a few minutes in silence each day. Ask a question and listen without forcing an answer. Pay attention to songs that repeatedly show up. Notice recurring words and phrases. Practice automatic writing. That's where you sit down, you clear your mind, and you write whatever comes to mind. Doesn't matter if it makes sense. You just write down every word that comes to mind. There's a message in there usually for you. You can journal the first answer you hear before your logical brain jumps in. And remember, intuition tends to be sound and calm. Fear tends to be frantic. Now, if you're clairsentience, clear feeling, and my empaths, this one's for you. This is receiving information through feelings, emotions, sensations, goosebumps, energy shifts, and body awareness. You can strengthen it by practicing body scans. Ask, is this my energy or someone else's? Before claiming every feeling, as your own. Spend time in nature. Notice how different people make you feel. Track when you get goosebumps and what was happening at that moment. Pay attention to gut feelings. And please learn the difference between empathy and absorbing everybody else's stuff. That lesson will save you a whole lot of headaches. With clear cognizance, clear knowing, the famous I don't know how I know, I just know clear. No explanation, no evidence, no logic, just knowing. Ways to strengthen this is to start trusting your first impression. Keep a journal of intuitive hits. Write down predictions and check on them later. I do this all the time. Ask questions and notice the first answer that arrives. Stop demanding immediate proof. Practice noticing when information arrives fully formed. Clear cognizance rarely explains itself. It literally just drops the file into your brain and walks away. Clear alience, the clear smelling, this is receiving information through scent. So ways to strengthen this is to pay attention when random smells appear. Journal what was happening around the smell. Notice whether certain scents trigger memories, emotions, or intuitive impressions. Stay curious instead of immediately dismissing the experience. Clear gustance, the clear tasting one of the less common clears. You can strengthen this by noticing random tastes that seem disconnected from what you're eating. Journal the experience. Track whether the taste appears around specific memories, people, or situations. Stay open and observant. Clear touch, psychometry, receiving impressions through touch. Objects, photographs, jewelry, places. You can strengthen this by holding meaningful objects during meditation. Visit historical places and notice impressions. Practice noticing how different environments feel. Touch an object and journal any images, emotions, or thoughts that arise. The most important thing, and here's what every intuitive teacher I have ever listened to seems to agree on, whether it's Elizabeth April, Sterling, Sylvia Brown, or pretty much anybody talking about intuition. Trust develops after awareness, meaning you don't strengthen your gifts by trying harder. You strengthen them by noticing, by paying attention, by becoming curious, and by honoring the little nudges. Because intuition usually doesn't start by shouting, it starts by whispering. And the more you listen, the easier it becomes to hear. All right, my loves. Speaking of intuition, you all know I love hearing your stories. In last week's question of the week, I got some amazing responses. Because if you remember, I asked, have you ever had an experience that felt like more than a dream? Maybe sleep paralysis, buzzing, vibrating, floating, seeing yourself asleep, traveling somewhere that felt weirdly real, meeting someone, visiting a place, or waking up like, okay, I swear I just went somewhere. Or maybe you've had a dream that felt so real, you still think about it years later. This week's listener response comes from one of our tribe members, Lizzie, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Hey, girl. Hey. Lizzie wrote, hi, Tease Angel. I have never told many people this because honestly, it sounds crazy. A few years ago, you guys, if anything sounds crazy, I always say believe it. Just follow the lead and look into it. A few years ago, after my dad passed away, I had a dream that didn't feel like a dream. In the dream, I was standing on a dock, looking over a lake. Everything looked brighter than normal, more real somehow. My dad walked up to me. He looked younger, healthier, and completely at peace. We sat on a bench and talked. Not about anything important, just talked. like we used to. At one point, he looked at me and said, "You're carrying too much." Then he hugged me. And I remember feeling his arms around me. I remember crying, and I remember waking up crying. The weird part is that I could still feel the hug after I woke up. Aw. I sat up in bed and just cried because it felt like I had actually been with him. To this day, I still don't know if it was a dream, a visitation, or something else, but I know it changed me. Aw, Lizzie, I've had those dreams when it comes to my sister and my mom, and those can be very, very, very real. And yes, you do wake up crying. First of all, thank you, because I guarantee you're not the only person listening who has experienced something like that. And second, this is exactly why these conversations matter, because maybe it was a dream, maybe it was a visitation, maybe it was your subconscious helping you heal, and maybe it was something else entirely. But here's what stands out to me: it brought peace. And sometimes that's the part that matters. Not proving it, not labeling it, not forcing an answer, just honoring the experience. Because there is a difference between a random dream and a dream that stays with you for years. And I think a lot of us know exactly what that feels like. Dreaming of my mom and my sister, or even my nephews that have passed away. Spending time with them in dreams, or when they come and visit me or they show me stuff, those have helped me process my loss faster than any grief group, any book, any podcast, anything. Those dreams, when they came to visit me, or when they still come to visit me, they tell me in my heart that those people are okay and they're still here with me, which makes it easier for me to move on without them being physically present. I get to enjoy their soul presence. And guess what? I get to enjoy their soul's presence all the time, because every time you think about somebody that has passed, they come to you. You don't see them, you may not even feel them, but they come around you. So I can honestly say right now that my mom and my sister and my nephews are here with me right now, listening to this podcast. And that brings me joy and lights up my heart. And whether you want to believe it or not, like I always say, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. I know I'm not crazy, but I do get into my feels, and I've already developed my awareness, and it makes me feel good. So if it makes you feel good, keep doing it. Don't worry about people calling you crazy. I don't. Lizzie, thank you again for your response. And as a thank you, I'm going to be sending you a free copy of my book, Secrets of the Ravensquill. All right, this brings me to this week's question. And I am super excited about this one because after today's episode, I think a lot of you are going to have stories, and you're going to go to see how amazing it is to try to figure out if you have any of the clairs, or go down rabbit holes. I'm so excited, you guys. So here's the question: which clair do you think is your strongest? Are you clairvoyant, clear seeing, clairaudient, clear hearing, clear sentient, clear feeling, clear cognizant, clear knowing, clear alien, clear smelling, or clear gustant, clear tasting? Or maybe a combination. And here's the bigger question: when did you first realize it? Send me your stories, send me your experiences. I have a feeling some of these responses are going to blow my mind. All right, tribe. Now that we've spent some time talking about intuition, the different ways it speaks, and the languages of the soul, let's see what the cards have to say. Because one thing I've learned, the cards have a funny way of showing up at the right time, right? So let's tap in to the collective energy. Move my wine glass. And let's get spiritual. Deep breath in and exhale all of that old heavy energy. All right, I'm focusing on the tribe. envisioning all of you surrounding me, all of us being surrounded and embraced by pure white light, shuffling my Matt Hughes deck and asking the universe, what message do you have for the tribe this week? Let's see. I'm really excited to hear your responses about any of your clairs, because I know for a fact if you're in this community, you have at least one clair or have at least noticed one clair or noticed several. Like I said, I'm claircognizant most of the time, and I've been told that I'm clairaudient. And you know what's funny? I didn't even realize I was clairaudient until I paid attention when Sterling told me I was clairaudient, and that was my strongest one, because I was like, no, I think I'm claircognizant. I just know things. And it's really funny to just know things, but clairaudient is when you hear things, right? And I used to wonder why, while I was going to bed, we have a fan that runs in the room, I would hear music underneath the hum of the fan. And I swear I would get up and search everywhere. I put my head outside the window. I walked through the house. I looked everywhere. It was like fairy type music that you would hear in like a fairy movie or something. I can't even describe it. It's just this underlying music. And I couldn't for the life of me figure it out. It didn't make sense until I remembered that Sterling said I was clairaudient. And then there's times where in my life I would be sound asleep in the middle of the night and I would hear something in my ear, watch your mother. And that was weird. But when I got up to watch my mother, I opened my room door to darkness and she had fallen asleep on the couch and the pot on the stove was burning because everything in it had burnt down to nothing because she fell asleep. So yeah, that's clairaudient. And I'm sorry, I digress. Told you guys I go off into tangents. All right, what do we got here? We've got the Six of Swords, the King of Cups. Let's see. The Page of Wands, the Five of Pentacles, the Four of Pentacles, and let's see what the grounding card is. The Chariot. The grounding card is the Chariot. So first off, the spread is all earth, air, fire, and water energies. It's all for the for the energies. And since the Chariot is grounding the deck, this week is all about movement, period. The Chariot is grounding the entire deck. And because it's a major arcana, this isn't small energy. This is life moving. This is momentum, progress. This is the universe saying, we're not staying here anymore. And then the Six of Swords immediately follows and tells me many of us are transitioning away from old ways of thinking, old stories, old fears, old perspectives. We're leaving something behind mentally. Then we arrive at the King of Cups. And this feels important because the collective is moving from the mind into the heart. We're spending less time asking, what should I do? And more time asking, what feels right? Because the King of Cups is emotional mastery. He's calm, grounded, balanced. He's not ruled by his emotions. He's in partnership with them. Then comes the Page of Wands, the explorer, the dreamer, the student, the adventurer. This feels like someone finally looking toward the horizon and asking, okay, what's next, universe? But then the fear shows up, the Five of Pentacles. And I don't think this card is predicting hardship. I think it's exposing the fear of hardship, the fear of not having enough, the fear of failing, the fear of stepping into the unknown. Because every time we grow, fear has something to say about it, right? And then we arrive at the Four of Pentacles, the card of holding on, protecting, clinging, not wanting to let go. And that's where I think the real message lives. What are you holding on to? What belief, what fear, what comfort zone, what story? Because everything else in this reading is moving forward. The only thing resisting movement is the grip. So this week, the collective message feels really, really, really simple. The universe is trying to move you. Trust yourself enough to loosen your grip. And can we talk about something for a second? Because I just noticed something. I pay attention when the cards start repeating, especially when major arcana cards start showing up over and over again. And the Chariot has been following us. Last week in episode 32, the Chariot showed up right in the middle of the spread. This week, it's not even in the spread, it's grounding the entire reading. And that feels very significant to me because last week, the Chariot felt like it was teaching us how to move, how to balance, how to trust the process, how to steer the wagon, even when life is lifing. But this week, the Chariot has moved underneath the entire reading. It has become the foundation, the underlying energy, the current beneath everything else happening. And honestly, that tells me the universe isn't asking us if we want to move anymore. The universe is saying, we're moving. The only question now becomes, are you coming willingly or are you being dragged? Because the Chariot doesn't sit still, it progresses, it advances, it evolves. And the more I looked at these last few readings, the more I think back, the more I realize we've actually been telling one giant story together. Bear with me right now. Back in episode 30, we had the Knight of Wands, the Empress, the Ten of Cups, Judgment, and the Six of Cups, grounded by the Queen of Wands. That reading was all about awakening. Something was being sparked, something was growing, something was coming into alignment, right? It felt like the universe was saying, remember who you are. And then episode 31 came in with the Page of Cups, the Seven of Swords, the Eight of Wands, the Nine of Swords, and the King of Wands, grounded by the Five of Cups. And that reading felt like something is being offered to you. But then doubt showed up. Overthinking showed up, fear showed up, and the question became, will you trust it? Then, episode 32, last week's, with the Knight of Swords, the Three of Wands, the Four of Cups, the Chariot, and the Ace of Wands, grounded by the Six of Cups, that reading felt like expansion, growth, opportunity, new beginnings, but also hesitation, like the universe was literally holding something out and asking, are you finally ready to receive this? And now we arrive here, episode 33. The Six of Swords, the King of Cups, the Page of Wands, the Five of Pentacles, the Four of Pentacles, grounded by the Chariot. And now the question changes again. The question isn't, can you receive? The question isn't, can you trust? It isn't, can you grow? The question now is, what are you still holding on to? Because every reading for the last month has been moving in the same direction. Movement, expansion, trust, forward momentum. The universe has spent the last several weeks waking us up, handing us opportunities, asking us to trust ourselves, encouraging us to grow, showing us new possibilities. And now it's asking us to release whatever we're gripping so tightly that it's preventing us from stepping fully into the next chapter. And I think that's why the Four of Pentacles lands so strongly for me, because it's the only card in this week's spread resisting the movement. Everything else wants to go. The Chariot wants to move. The Six of Swords wants to move. The Page of Wands wants to explore. Even the King of Cups wants emotional growth and maturity. The only thing holding on is the grip, the fear, the comfort zone, the old story, that scarcity mindset, the belief that says, maybe I should stay where I am. I don't think the collective is staying where they are. I think we're moving. I think we've been moving. I think the cards have been showing us that for weeks. And now the universe is simply asking, do you trust yourself enough to let go of what no longer belongs on your journey? Now, before we wrap up, and I know you guys are wondering how I went back 4 weeks so quickly. Well, thank goodness I keep track of the episodes that I present, and I remembered while pulling the cards how everything just clicks and creates a story. So I thought I would share that story with you, because tarot is all about the story. It's not about one card. And when you look back and see the progression of the cards over the weeks, it literally tells our entire story. So let's move, you guys. The universe is telling us to move. Let's move. Okay, before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one thought. You do not have to call yourself psychic. You do not have to call yourself intuitive. You do not have to label any of this at all. But I do think there is value in paying attention. Like I always say, pay attention. Pay attention to your feelings. Pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to the things that keep showing up. Pay attention to what your body knows. Pay attention to those moments when something inside you quietly whispers, wow. Every week, that motorcycle drives like a bat out of hell down my street and interrupts my episode. Anyway, something inside you quietly whispers, pay attention. Because maybe, just maybe, your soul has been talking to you all along. And maybe this journey isn't about becoming something new. Maybe it's about remembering something you've always been. Trust yourself. Trust your experiences. Trust your heart. And most importantly, stay curious. You guys, stay curious, because curiosity opens doors. And sometimes those doors lead us exactly where we're meant to go. All right. As always, thank you for sharing the space with me today, for opening your hearts, and for being part of this beautiful, growing tribe. If you've been thinking about reaching out for guidance, clarity, or just a little confirmation, you're always welcome here. You can email me at teaseangel@gmail.com. Put free tarot card reading in the subject line. And if this episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need the reminder that curiosity isn't crazy. Asking questions is okay. And sometimes the most meaningful experiences in life are the ones we can't fully explain. Remember to hit the like button and share this podcast so we can continue to grow. Because there are so many souls out there who need to hear these messages. And if you're not looking for a reading and you just want to connect, share a thought, or simply say, hey girl, hey, send me an email with just chillin' in the subject line. Until next time, my loves, take care of your energy, be kind to your magic, and keep showing up. Grab your glass and cheers. Cheers to my tribe. Mwah. I love, love, love you all. And I will see you next week. Have a good one.